As I said in previous videos, I saw the episode of Unsolved Mysteries on Netflix of Jennifer Fairgate, and that was such a mind twister of a case that, I saw more videos on YouTube on Jennifer Fairgate. But then what I really learned stuff was searching the internet for articles and journalist reports on the case. And I tell you what, there's details that Unsolved Mystery show left out. But anyway, was Jennifer Fairgate, that's not her real name, okay? But that's what we're going to call her. Was Jennifer, did she kill herself or was she murdered? Well, I don't know for sure. I don't think it's right just to say someone killed themselves when we don't have good evidence they did. So let's go over it. What's more probable? What has a higher possibility? Because we're not going to come to a conclusion. We're just going to have, unless someone has more evidence or there's a confession or there's a videotape somewhere that we don't have in possession, we're just dealing with possibilities. I think that there's a higher degree of possibility that Jennifer what was killed than killed herself. Number one, the undigested food. She had undigested food from a meal that she ordered the night before. And that she was found dead the next day, and the food was undigested to a large extent. Now, of course, I'm not going to say totally undigested, okay? Because once food starts going in your mouth, the saliva starts breaking it down even in your mouth. So just to swallow, just to chew it, the digestive process has already started. But to a large degree, this food was undigested. Okay, she was not killed the day after eating it. She was killed, most likely, probably within hours. No, within hours of eating it. Now, how many hours? 2 hours? Five? Eight? I don't know, but it wasn't a day later. So, that's one big piece of evidence. And when the security guard knocked on the door and he heard the gunshot, well, there was a second gunshot. So that couldn't have been the. So there's two gunshots, and two theories is one is that Jennifer had a practice shot to see if the gun worked, and then sometime later she used it on herself. Why would she do a practice shot in a hotel? If you had this plan that you're going to end your own life, why would you take a chance at blowing your plans by shooting in a hotel where other people can hear your gunshot? I mean, even if you muff it up in a pillow, I mean, still there's going to be some noise. And if you're inexperienced with guns, you don't know how loud it's going to be. I I think that's two gunshots. I think most likely she was killed. The first gunshot, she was killed. Then when the security guard knocked on the door, the person that killed Jennifer, he shot he shot the gun to scare the security guard away because he he he, he probably had been in that room. He probably knew those notices on the TV that room wasn't paid for because you had to click that you actually saw the notice that the room was unpaid for, and they asked you to go down and pay for it or to leave your credit card. So he probably had a suspicion that was security that was knocking on the door, not the police security. And usually security guards aren't going to bust open a door if they hear a gunshot. They're going to run and get help or call police. So that will buy you some time. So with the knock on the door, I think it's far more likely that a killer would shoot, having Jennifer already killed, the day before. I think that also covers the theory about how that room was so cleared out. There was things found in that room, such as nice shoes and luggage and other things that were in that room the day before that weren't in that room when the police showed up. And Jennifer herself hadn't been in that room for a 20-hour time period. So there are some unusual things going on. And, Stephanie Harlow, she made a great point in her video that in Jennifer's room, there was Coke and there was Diet Coke. And she made the point that she didn't really know of people that drunk both. Like, was there only two? Is it, like, and I started to think about that. There really aren't that many people that I know of that would drink Coke and then like if they'd go to Diet Coke, it would just taste nasty to them, and vice versa. So I thought that was an interesting point, but I think someone else was in there. Now, some people make a lot of the men's cologne that was found in Jennifer's room. I don't make too big of a point on this. And Stephanie actually made this point, but I was already thinking it before Stephanie did it. I met females before that actually there were certain male clones that they wore, they liked. So, my favorite male clone is Miyake. I don't know if you've heard of Izzy Miyake. I think it's the best by far. Not by far, but I think it's the best. Well, actually, the person that notified me about how great that clone was actually a female who, well, she wore it from time to time. And this was like a long time ago. This was like in 1997 or 98 or you know, s- no, actually it was like 2003, 2001. But anyway, back to Jennifer. Back to Jennifer Fairgate. So I think that she killed herself, and I think that okay, it was to me it was weird the way that she held the gun. I'm not gonna like do it on the film. I don't want to act like I'm holding a gun to my head. Okay, I just don't want to have that picture out there. But she had her thumb on the trigger, not her trigger finger, not her index finger. She had her thumb on the trigger, and that's how she shot herself in the forehead. Well, she shot herself in the forehead. Your forehead is the hardest part of the body. When Mike Tyson fought, his stance was called the peekaboo, and he would have both gloves up here. His head, the hardest part, was exposed, and he'd go back and forth. Now, you couldn't get a power shot on Mike Tyson when he was in his prime. He was too fast. But yeah, you could jab him, and someone would hit his head, but you would expose yourself with a punch, and then he would just turn and torque his body and just unleash, usually like a really hard body shot, and then come back with a uppercut. I mean, brutal. But my whole point was is that the top of your head, his style worked because the top of your head is the hardest part of your body. So she had her gun held in a way not traditional, but if you think about it, if you're shooting yourself in the forehead, I guess that is the way you would hold a gun. But why shoot yourself in the forehead? But I guess other people have done it before, so you can't really use that as evidence. What is weird is that there is no blood on her hand or the gun. If someone shoots themselves in the head and there's blood splatter that goes to the ceiling, don't you think there'd be blood splatter on your hand? Don't you think there'd be blood splatter on the gun? I mean, not if someone else shot you, but if you shot yourself, yeah, there would be most likely. And no gunshot residue was on her hand. Now, I've heard people saying because she held the gun kind of backwards to an extent, that it was possible that the gunshot residue really wasn't meant to get your hand if you shot that way. But then she also shot down. She shot a pillow, like on the bed or like in close proximity to where she shot herself. And there's really no, if she was testing the gun, there's really no reason to think that she used her thumb for that way. So we're talking about two times. If you believe the suicide theory, she would have had to shoot herself twice. She would have shot the gun twice, and neither time leaving gunshot residue. I think that's not probable. Is it possible? Yes. Not probable. Okay? So, as far as what we've talked about so far about possibility and probability, the probability is that she was being killed. the unusual activity in the room. I think she was actually probably had another safe house, something weird. It was like I think it was spy activity, or she could have been having an affair with somebody. I don't know, but that room, it was testified by yeah, by someone that worked at the hotel that it didn't seem like it was really being used like normal rooms were used, stayed in, especially when you're not in a room for 20 hours at a time and you're there for 3 days. But there's a 20-hour gap that you're not in the room. So there's all these gunshot rounds. There's all this ammo found in this bag. And there's still, I think when you count the ammo that was in the gun and this ammo that was just in this bag, I mean, it was close. I think it was close to like 37 to 40 rounds. That's a lot. That's a lot for someone that just wanted to go and take their own life. Now I know most people when they take their own life, they have mental issues. They're not thinking correctly. Okay, they're off. But still, taking 40 rounds to do a job that you just need one, that I don't see it. I don't see it. Now, another thing, and I think that maybe this might be the biggest piece of evidence. I saw the crime scene photos. I thought it was uncanny how the gun was just resting on Jennifer's chest and how like she went down, her feet were on the ground, her butt was on the bed, and you know if she would have shot herself in the head, she went back down and the gun was on her chest, just nice and peaceful and kind of, I guess, centered a little bit on her chest, but it was just kind of on her chest. It it seemed way too neat. Usually when there's a gunshot, things like convulse. You know, things, you know, um, things get messy. Things get distorted. It's not like the movies that someone just falls down and they just fall peacefully. It's not like a Hollywood death, like it's violent. So those crime scene photos did not show any of that violence. I mean, she just it looked like she was set up. It looked like somebody killed her and then they set up her body. I think that is a very high probability. So, as far the lack stuff in her room, no pants except for the pants she was wearing. Someone was going through things were being transported from or to her room, and it was really odd. So many odd things. Now, the one piece of evidence that holds me back and saying, well, I guess suicide is a possibility, not a probability, but it is a possibility, is that door, that the hotel door, when the security knocked on the door and there was a gunshot, and the security guy went back, and then 15 minutes later, he came back with more people. 15 minutes. That's a lot of time. You think if you heard a gunshot, you think you'd have armed security come back to that room right away. You don't know what's going on in that room. You don't know if there's going to be like an active shooter on that floor. But 15 minutes seems like a long time for security to come back. And that's what leaves the door open for a killer to get out, especially if the killer's staying on that same floor. You know, if she's having an affair with someone on that floor or even the another floor, that 15 minutes is a long time, especially if it was another spy. I mean, I heard somewhere where an experienced thief, can get in your house, and once they're in your house, they can steal everything they want to steal in 90 seconds and get out. Well, think what a trained spy, a trained assassin would be able to do. But that door being locked from the inside, that is a little bit of a barrier, and that's where I have a question. That door being locked from the inside, because if someone shot Jennifer, and then when that security guard knocked on the door and they shot pillow or they shot the floor or something for a second, to scare that person away, and they left that door, and they had to leave through the door. There was no balcony on the window, and it was high up, unless they're going to do some Spider-Man, or Tom Cruise Mission Impossible stuff. They're probably going to go out that door. That shooter would have to leave that door, but then make it look like it was locked from the inside. Now, this is where I'm a little confused because, okay, they said it was locked from the inside, so that's a deadbolt. Now, a lot of hotels, they lock automatically. You shut the door and the door is locked. And then on the keypad, on the handle pad, there's like a little thing that you can just turn and it puts the deadbolt in. That's like a typical modern day hotel. But now there's also something like usually at the top of the door or like towards the top, kind of like a metal lever that you swing over and attaches, and that acts like a deadbolt too. Kind of like, what those chains in a lot of houses, you put a chain up and that's locking it from the. I don't. When people say that the door was locked from the inside, do they mean that there was a lever that was attached, or do they mean that the door was just the deadbolt on the pad was shut? Do you know what I'm trying to explain? Because there's ways around. You can unlock. There's security tricks that you can use with key cards if you know how to do it right. That you can unlock that deadbolt on the pad and unlock the door. Now, it will take more time, but it's still possible, but it still takes more time to unlock that deadbolt if someone swung a deadbolt at the top. You could do that with like a piece of string, but it would take time. Now, if you're a killer, you don't know when that security is going to come back up. They ended up taking about 15 minutes to come up. But that seems like a lot of time to waste. Now I'm sure that, an assassin, someone skilled at doing this, they could do it in less than a couple of minutes. But still, I mean, it took them 15 minutes, but he didn't know, or she, it could have been the she that killed Jennifer. They didn't know it was gonna, he or she did not know it was gonna take that long for security to come. Would they have taken the time to to lock the door from the inside? And that's something I can't get past. Now the keypad, that's easier to do. You can do that from the outside. There's tricks you can do that. And there's tricks you can do to lock the deadbolt too. It just takes more time. It takes string and you have to play with it. What do you think? I think when you add the everything together. Now, okay, Jennifer, one last thing is that she did shower. Now she had no toiletries, which is weird. Just male cologne, which she could have used or it could have been someone else's. But she showered, and I guess it was just the hotel soap. I mean, hotel soap. She showered, but there weren't like perfume, and to my knowledge, I don't think there was like a toothbrush or things that you normally would have. Then she dressed up in black and shot herself. I don't think that goes either way. I could see someone, okay, you're gonna shower and you're gonna. Some people say, well, she dressed up in black to get ready because she wanted to be found. She was killed, she was preparing for a funeral. Well, in some styles, and especially in Europe, the trends are different than in the US. And in some places, black is real popular. You know, in our culture, maybe we do attach black with grieving, but not all cultures do that. And some people, that they think black is like the in color, especially in 1995. So, I wouldn't make too much out of that. It could go either way. Like in the movie A Few Good Men. I don't know if you saw that. Tom Cruise and Demi Moore and Kevin Bacon were in that show, and Jack Nicholson. There was I don't know if he was a colonel or a lieutenant or a captain, but he committed suicide. But he put in full dress military uniform, and then he killed himself. And then This wasn't a case of suicide, but I remember and I always kind of chuckle because, in the movie The Patriot with Mel Gibson, well, there was a French military advisor that was helping the American cause. And like on the day before the Battle of Cowpens, like Mel Gibson looked at him and he like had this extravagant uniform on. And he said, well, if I die, I'm going to die in style or dressed in, or he said something like that. I forget exactly, but it was kind of cool the way he said it. Not saying dying's cool. I mean, dying's part of life. Killing yourself is never the answer, okay? It's never the answer. And if you are having any issues with that, you can leave a comment on any of my videos, and I will try to help you to the best of my ability. I'm just talking about this Jennifer case right now, okay? I'm not, I don't think Jennifer committed suicide. And really, if you take out that locked door, I think everything else points to her being killed. And the only barrier